Keto worked. Calorie counting worked. Intermittent fasting worked. So why couldn't you make any of them stick? I know this feeling so well. You find a way of eating that makes sense, so you commit to it. And within a couple of days, that scale moves. And in a few weeks, your clothes fit differently. And you have this real proof that this time might actually be different. And then something shifts. It gets harder. Not because you lack discipline, not because you picked the wrong approach. It gets harder because you're asking your brain and body to sustain something that takes constant effort every single day inside a life that's already running at full capacity. And at some point, quietly, you stop. Not because you failed, but because you're human. Today, I want to show you why this pattern keeps happening, and more importantly, why it has nothing to do with your willpower or your character. If you're new here, I'm Julie Fikert. I'm a health and well-being coach, and this channel is for women who know what they want to do for their health but can't quite seem to make it happen in real life. Here's the point that makes this so confusing and honestly so painful. These ways of eating, all of them basically, they usually do work, at least at first. The scale drops, your clothes fit differently within the first few weeks, and that feels like something real, something you can hold on to. You get something that feels like real evidence early on, and it's easy to believe that if the results stop later, something must have gone wrong with you. But here's the truth. When those results slow down, nothing went wrong with you. A fast, dramatic change will almost always produce a fast, visible response. That part was never in question. What it doesn't mean is that your body or your life could keep sustaining the effort it took to get there. That effort you were pouring into this new way of eating day after day, that's worth looking at more closely because it wasn't just hard. It was asking something of you very few of us can actually give for very long. So if that pattern feels familiar, I want you to really hear this next part. You were likely relying on willpower. But willpower doesn't quite work the way we think it does. Willpower isn't an unlimited resource. It's more like an emergency system, something meant to carry you through a hard moment for a short stretch of time, not to quietly manage every food choice every day indefinitely. And that's exactly why these bigger, faster changes, it's exactly what they ask of you, right? They ask you to turn down the food in front of you, to go against what everyone around you is eating, and to hold that line meal after meal and day after day without much room to rest. For a while, you can do it. Most of us can, for a little while. But your brain was never designed to treat every choice like an emergency, and at some point, it stops being willing to do it. That's not a personal failing. That's just what happens when we ask an emergency system to work an everyday job. So if willpower was never going to be the thing that carries you through, what actually does? And this is exactly the part I work through with the women I coach. Instead of overhauling everything at once, we start by getting really clear on what she actually wants, what she's working towards, right? And then we build a path there that's made of small, specific shifts, ones her real life can actually absorb, even on a hard week. That might mean introducing maybe one new food she enjoys every couple of weeks, instead of reworking her whole plate overnight. It might mean gradually adjusting when she eats, rather than flipping the switch all at once. Now, I know what this might sound like. Small. Maybe even too small to actually get you anywhere. If the only version of change you've ever felt working came from something big and dramatic, it makes complete sense that something quiet and small would feel like it could not possibly be enough. But small isn't the same thing as insignificant. It's simply the version of change that doesn't ask your body to sound the alarm, and doesn't ask your week to hold together perfectly in order for it to work. And unlike that big overhaul, it's the version you can actually keep doing. Now, just as important, when I work with my health coaching clients, we don't stop at making the specific change. Each week, we look at what actually went right, even the smallest thing, and we take real time to notice it. Because that noticing is what starts to build the kind of evidence that willpower never could. So let's bring this together. These ways of eating worked at first, and that was real. You weren't imagining the results or manufacturing hope out of nothing. The problem was never whether they would work in the beginning. The problem is that they ask willpower to do a job it was never built for, managing every food choice every day without rest for as long as it takes. Willpower can carry you through for a while. It's just not designed to carry you forever. And the answer isn't a different diet or trying harder at the same one. It's finding a way to change how you eat that's small enough for your actual life to hold on to, week after week, even when things get hard. When this starts to shift, it doesn't feel like this dramatic before and after. It feels quieter than that. It's steadier. You stop white-knuckling your way through meals and start noticing that you just feel a little more like yourself. You say yes to dinner out without a plan falling apart the next morning. You have energy that lasts throughout the whole day, not just until the willpower runs out. And for the first time in a long time, the way you eat starts to feel like something you're building, not something you're just constantly trying to survive. If any part of this feels familiar, the early success or the quiet unraveling, the guilt that followed, I want you to know that none of that is a sign there's something wrong with you. It's a sign that the approach you took was asking more of you than any human was built to sustain. Figuring out what actually fits your real life is exactly what we work together in coaching. We get clear on what your goal is, right? We build a path of small shifts your week can actually hold. And then every single week we notice what went right and then we adjust from there. A free 30-minute call is a good place to start that conversation. You can book yours directly. The link is in the description below. And if you're not quite ready yet, that's fine. Start with my free workbook. I've also linked that in the description for you as well. Thanks for spending time with me today. And please be as kind to yourself as you would be to any woman telling you this same story.